Good morning. You're listening to WPVM FM in Asheville, North Carolina, 103.7 on the dial. This is the BLAINESWORLD Show, heard each Wednesday at 9 a.m. and you can also watch us on WPVM's Facebook page. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield, in my Zoom studio in lovely downtown Fairview, North Carolina. And each week we focus on the Asheville theater scene, as well as on positive news and information about people and organizations in both Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And toward that end, it's my pleasure to introduce Edwin Arnaudin, a local film reviewer and editor. And Edwin, you can feel free to wave to all your fans and friends in Facebook world. So if you're watching, that's Edwin. And as I told you off the air, Edwin, this is a real treat because I've been following you. How long have you been doing reviews?
Coming on 10 years, depending on when you started reading and where, because I've definitely hopped around the local scene.
Okay, but I've been following you for certainly a long time, and I always enjoy your stuff, so it's really finally great to get to see you. Edwin is a North Carolina native growing up in Brevard. He has worked in public libraries for 5 years, writing on this side before pursuing a full-time journalism career in 2013. He has freelanced for Ash Vegas, I read you there, the Asheville Citizen-Times, and Mountain Express. He has been a full-time staff writer for Mountain Express since 2017. The same year, he started Asheville Movies with Bruce Steele, launching Asheville Stages, covering local theaters and music coverage in 2018. The question, Edwin, I always ask for people for the first time. You told me you grew up in Greensboro?
I went to college there, but grew up in Brevard.
You grew up in Brevard. When you were a little kid growing up in Brevard, did you always know you wanted to be a movie critic?
I knew I wanted to be some kind of writer, and I loved movies. I think I thought I was going to write movies for a while, or write the great American novel, as most writers think. So, but I loved reading Roger Ebert and
Sure.
Our very own Tony Kiss in the Citizen-Times. He always gets embarrassed when I tell him he was one of my first critics, because he and I are buddies now. It's kind of surreal to have that connection, but you kind of had that strong foundation, and I had my father's very encouraging about movies and would show me movies. So it just kind of started to build from there, and had a lot of good encouragement along the way.
Do you remember the very first movie you ever saw?
First movie I saw?
Yeah.
Well, I'm told that it was An American Tail, the animated film. But I don't remember that. I think some of the first memories I have are more like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, more like in the late 80s.
What was the very first review you ever did? Do you remember?
It might have been Mystic River on my blog or my live journal account when I was a sophomore in college. That's the one that stands out to me.
Okay, very cool. But so in high school or even college, you didn't do any reviewing for papers?
It was more music writing back then. It was, I don't know, it just seemed like that was more interesting at the time, just to I was getting into more interesting indie rock and hip hop, and being able to write for the Brevard High School paper there. And, but not too much movie reviews. I think it was more kind of accumulating movie knowledge on the side. Like, I collected baseball cards growing up and sort of would memorize the statistics and all those things. So going into movies was kind of a natural other nerd interest for me. So that it was more about knowing about movies and who was who. And but I did write a one-act play for my senior project and wrote a paper on Woody Allen. So that kind of helped me get forward that way too.
Did the one-act play ever get produced?
Well, I did one performance of it with 6 of my friends doing a read through, so that was part of it, and we had a lot of fun. It was in the basement of the old Transylvania County Library, just in downtown Brevard.
Okay, very cool. You said becoming a novelist. Do you see yourself coming back to that at some point in time?
Maybe. I think the more I kind of practiced that, and I did get a couple of drafts done of different novels, like a YA novel, and then more like a literary fiction. I took some classes here too with the Smoky Mountain Writers Workshop, but it seemed like a less realistic way to make a living as a writer, and I may pick away at it more, but I don't know. I think with reviewing all these wonderful films and theater and music locally and interviewing people. That keeps me so busy that it's often hard to pursue creative writing on the side.
I tell people, Edwin, I'm like the worst critic, especially when it comes to theater, because if I know somebody, and I'm going to talk about this with respect to you, but if I know somebody, I hate giving it a bad review. I hate saying anything bad. Yet movies I don't care about, because I don't know the people. What's your feeling on that in terms of when you're reviewing something? Both, let's take them both separately, movies and then a show. Do you have a philosophy in terms of reviews?
Well, I think with the theater or projects that you mentioned, like where you might know somebody, I still think it's good to be constructive. I think you can, even if you didn't like something, you can still be kind of constructive in your criticism so that they can get good feedback. You don't have to be hateful if you didn't
Right.
like it. Just say like, this stunk, this was terrible, you're an idiot. Like you don't want to say that. You want to say like, well, maybe think about this or think about that and kind of steer them right. And then you're kind of helping yourself with that friendship, but also their creative work as well.
Well, what I like about your stuff, though, is that, yeah, I don't feel it's hateful at all, but I feel it's kind of, for the most part, kind of positive and upbeat, and which I really like. You give, kudos, certainly when they're deserved, and you try to call out a lot of people. Yet, your paper, I won't mention the reviewer, but for a while they were getting different people to review at different times, theater. And this one reviewer, I won't mention the person, but I told you it's a she, but she wrote really nasty stuff, I think, about some shows. And it was really, didn't seem appropriate, and it's just, so fortunately the person's not reviewing for you anymore. But how about movies? Do you have a different feeling on movies?
I think with movies, it's I just kind of go in as a blank slate almost to everything I watch. Just to I just sit down and I think, okay, I'm here, just entertain me. And then it could be from a director that I've hated everything that they've done so far. And then by having an open mind, I've had some great experiences where I've really enjoyed their latest film. And it's really kind of fun to stick with them and give them a chance and have them pleasantly surprise you. But yeah, it's really just about sitting down, saying, entertain me, and then kind of thinking about, well, did it or did it not? And why did I react this way? And then try to kind of spin it all together into a good critique that also is entertaining so that people don't just get bored after the first two sentences and put it away.
Is it me or do you also have this? But my wife and I almost have like a 15-minute rule. And if we're not into a movie 15 minutes, not only on Netflix, but even when we go to a theater, we're out of there. Can you tell within a short period of time whether you're going to like a film or not?
Often, I think, and that kind of goes back to fiction writing and newspaper magazine writing too. Like you really want to hook the viewers early, and if you don't, it could be a really long sit. But yeah, definitely at home, if I'm watching something that I'm not reviewing or have a movie from the library or something, yeah, if it's not hooking me, I don't want to waste my time. There's so many movies I haven't seen that I want to get to that, I feel like my time is valuable and I'm not gonna subject myself to something that it would just be a bad time. But in the theater, especially for a new release, I do think it's my job to stick it out, even if it's going to be awful. And man, there's been some long sits sometimes. And sometimes you can tell, like you're saying, within 5 or 10 minutes, it's like, ooh, like this is the going in now. Oh man, like, I just got to zone out and just get through this.
And my problem I have with theater, especially local theater, because I know so many people in it, and you probably do too. So even if I want to go, I can't. Or my wife will sometimes say, "Let's go," and I said, "I can't." I just know the people. And I don't know about you, but I just have. You probably have seen it in Facebook. I just have this thing I like, thanking everybody after the show, and congratulating them, and taking a picture. And so if it's not out at halftime, they kind of get the message that it wasn't a good film. Like even I forget the name of the film. I'm trying to think of it. It was so bad. Yeah, The Garden. We saw a film the other day. I love, not The Garden, The Fine Arts. And Grail. I love supporting local cinema if I can. And we saw this one film. You probably know the film. It was about a Polish-Russian situation or something. It was on a train ride. It was about a train ride. It was just out. You know the film?
Compartment number 6.
Yeah. Did you see it?
I did. Yeah, I watched it at home.
I'll put you on the spot. What did you say?
I got a link, so I got to watch it at home before it hit the theater.
Did you enjoy it?
I did. It was. I could see why people wouldn't though, because it's a very I don't know. Like you're saying, it kind of plays its hand early, and if you're not on board, that's not a train pun. If you're not on board, it's going to be a long sit. But yeah, I like the way that those characters kind of came around, but it took a minute. I'll say that.
But I was saying, yeah, we took 15 minutes and we were out of there. It's just, and even though I paid for it, it was not pleasant. We didn't enjoy it. What about the whole change in movie industry, which I think is kind of unfortunate, but with Netflix and Amazon and now Apple, whatever, and so people are now watching a lot of stuff, including me, yours truly, on TV, at home. What's your feeling about that in terms of films coming out on TV almost at the same time on premium channels?
I'm kind of 50-50 on it because I feel like everything should be seen in a theater if possible. Even, like I mentioned Woody Allen before, like his films aren't necessarily, like sweeping epics or anything,
Right.
but they still benefit from being seen on a big screen in a nice room with a properly projected display. But at the same time, like some of these studios are giving some of my favorite filmmakers money to make their passion projects. Like you think of Netflix with The Irishman, Martin Scorsese,
Right.
hardly any other studio would have been able to give up that kind of money and just say like, hey, go see your vision through. Almost anybody else would have said, yeah, we're going to want Final Cut or we're going to want to interfere. And so, you see that again this year with Netflix and giving Jane Campion with Power of the Dog a shot. And I don't know that other studios would have been as generous. So there is a plus on that side. And Scorsese's working with Apple for his next film. And so he's just sort of found this other revenue stream. So there's pluses, but yeah, like when you're at home, you're just so distracted. You want to pause
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
kind of get out of the flow of the movie. And I think the flow is really important to enjoying a movie properly.
Well, it's funny you said that because we saw Nightmare Alley, which I liked,
Yes.
but we were watching it, and at the same time it came out on Netflix or something. So I said to my wife, why are we paying to see it there when we could see it at home? But you're right. To me, it's a different experience. It's just it's you have no interruptions. You just say the whole time. Did you like Nightmare Alley?
I did. I like the second half a lot
Me
better. I
too.
guess
Yeah.
they leave the circus. I thought it really took off, but I think Guillermo del Toro is he's got such a crazy imagination. I just always like seeing what he comes up with.
But I love that. Now, did you see the original?
I haven't. No, I know it's on the
Oh,
Criterion channel. So
I
yeah,
see
just
it.
haven't got around to
I
it yet.
really want to see it. The other one, let me get your reaction to this one. I don't know if we'll agree on it. Cyrano. You saw Cyrano?
I did. Mhm.
Did you like it?
I did. Yeah. I thought Peter Dinklage was terrific, and
Great. Yeah.
I like Joe Wright's films. I think they're really visually stunning, and I like most of the cast. I didn't really care for the actor playing Christian. I think it was Kelvin Harrison Jr. I thought he was a little miscast,
Right.
and some of the songs were a little wonky. Even though The National was one of my favorite bands, it was kind of funny to see them write Broadway style music. So it was kind of a mixed bag, but I liked it.
Well, I loved it. And then we loved something. My wife loved the music, and we bought this. We got the downloaded it, whatnot. We're just loving it. But that was a surprise. I mean, pleasant surprise. We just really enjoyed it. To the extent, heads up, the original is now on TCM. Do you get TCM?
I think I've got it in my YouTube TV. I think it's on those, and it's
But
like
Turner Classic Movies, I just love. So I can't wait. Did you see the original with Jose Ferrer?
No, I've seen. I think Gerard Depardieu did one in the
He did
'80s,
one too, but the
and then
original was I think 1947,
okay,
and Jose Ferrer won an Oscar on it. So I can't wait to see it. And then what was the Steve Martin version?
Roxanne.
Yeah, it was just fun. So, but this was really well done. It caught me on by surprise. What was the one too? You'll know I'm not as good remembering stuff as I used to be. The one didn't do well at the Oscars, but the Meryl Streep, the what was that with the futuristic one with it was Don't Go Out. Was that it?
Oh, Don't Look Up.
Don't Look Up Yet. Did you see that?
Yeah, that was in my top 10 for this year.
Wasn't mine too. It was fun, wasn't it though?
It was, and it was a lot of people hate that movie, which was kind of shocking. I think satire is difficult, and I think some people can appreciate it, and some people just aren't equipped for it.
Oh, I thought that was so good. What was it? You mentioned top 10. What was your favorite film the past year?
Last year it was Wes Anderson's The French Dispatch was my favorite.
I knew you want to say that because just speaking to you a little bit, we were talking about films you like and don't like, directors. I'm, I guess, one of the few people I don't like anything Anderson comes out with, So
Yeah, yeah.
he and it's so funny because I'm in the middle of watching that film, French Dispatch, and I'm kind of half watching it. I have no interest in every movie he does. They kind of like that, but you really like him.
He's my favorite working director. Yeah, he just got a style that I really relate to. But again, it's sort of you either like it or you don't. And if he's not really going to switch it up enough that he's going to open the door and get new people. And it's like you're on the Anderson train or you're.
Right. But isn't that one of the great things about movies? You can have disagreements, and that you can like something and I don't have to like it. It's just different films and directors, I guess, strike people differently. But that's a good example of one.
Yeah, it'd be boring if we agreed all the time, right? If we were
I
just
guess
oh,
so.
yeah, we all like yeah.
Yeah. But that was a classic example of it. Talk about also the we just finished the Oscars just a couple of weeks ago, and certainly a different Oscars. First of all, the show itself. What do you think of the overall show?
It's probably the worst one I've seen. I was really not a fan of them removing those 8 categories and
Yeah.
not showing that and then just chopping it in to the regular feed. The whole point was to try to speed up the process of the ceremony and make it more exciting and get younger viewers to watch in, and it just backfired. I thought it ended up being much longer and sluggish than any other one I can remember. And I've been watching since, I don't know, like 8th grade, I think, and almost every year. I think I was in Canada for 2005, but otherwise it was, I thought it was a disaster.
What about the idea of 3 hosts?
That didn't bother me, and I thought they were pretty funny. I thought they all interacted pretty well, but they were present a lot less than I expected. I thought
Right.
they were going to be introducing a lot more scenes, and they kind of disappeared for a while.
Yeah, but it's just I used to love Billy Crystal or have one host. And just I miss seeing Crystal on the show, but it like I said didn't improve it, and it ran long anyway. Without 8 categories, it still ran long. And I'll put you on the spot a little bit because that's all I've been speaking about to people for the last couple of weeks. But the Chris Rock, who was, by the way, is kind of an interesting when he was the host of it, right? He hosted a couple, didn't he?
Yeah.
Oscars. So gets up, cracks a joke. Wasn't a particularly funny joke. I don't know, but a lot of people didn't know the background on it, when he said it. What's your reaction to what happened afterward?
Well, I think Will Smith totally overreacted, and it's bizarre because he laughed at the joke.
Right,
And then,
originally, right.
and then he sees his wife, Jada Pinkett Smith, not having it, just kind of rolling her eyes, and then he just snaps, and they've got kind of a interesting relationship, open relationship that was already, Regina Hall joked about their relationship earlier in the night and nothing happened, but something about Chris Rock making a joke about Jada having alopecia, just, I don't know, something went wrong, and he charged the stage and slapped him. And I don't know, I don't know about you, I thought it was a bit for a second. I thought it looked like he took a fake punch or something, but
yeah, it was good. Like you said, he didn't hit him. He slapped him a little bit.
Yeah, they showed the replay. Yeah.
Right, but then you read a little bit more about it afterward, the fact, and it said supposedly it might have been set up, that he had talked about it. I don't know if you saw the line about chaos. There was going to be chaos. Did you see that tweet yet?
Who sent out the tweet? I don't.
It's on Instagram. Smith was quoted as saying there's going to be a lot of chaos at night. Did you see that?
No, I did not know.
Okay, I'll have to send it to you. Yeah, it's like there are steps to it. You'll get a kick out of it. So he said he's getting ready for the Oscars. It's going to be chaos, And so some people think it may have even been, set up, the whole thing may have been, arranged or something. But it's a shame because it's, I don't know about you, but the bottom line, and I really like Smith. By the way, I that was one of my favorite films. Did you like King Richard?
I thought it was okay.
Yeah, I really liked it, disagreement. But I thought he was good in it. So I was glad he won the Oscar. But let me get your reaction on this one. There's talk, so Rock did not press charges, you may have seen, but there's talk about taking away Smith's Oscar. What's your feeling on that?
I don't think they should take it away. I think he wouldn't have been my pick to get it. I thought Denzel Washington was amazing in The Tragedy of Macbeth. I think he deserves it. But once you award it, I don't think you should take it away. Maybe put him on probation, say you can't come to the Oscars for a few years.
That might be a blessing for some people,
Yeah, and I think his career might suffer a little bit. I think some people might not want to work with him, just perceiving that he's kind of a hothead, that he would think that he could just do this on national television and then double down on it during his acceptance speech. So I think there'll be some consequences, but I wouldn't go so far as taking the Oscar away from him.
Well, it's interesting because I saw a great quote from Kathy Griffin, and she pointed out that what is this now, open season on comedians? Like, do you ever review comedy at all?
Not review, but it's just it's hard. Like, you mean for stand-ups, if you were to review a stand-up, you might give away their jokes or their show or something.
But even worse, Edwin, they're saying it. So if you're stand-up now, you have to fear for your life. So if you make a joke and somebody doesn't like it, then somebody's going to charge from the audience. Can you imagine? It's probably a dangerous profession to have. Even you as a critic, have you ever gotten backlash for anything you wrote?
Oh, I only get negative. Nobody tells me that. It's very rare when I get an email from someone that's like, "Oh, I totally agree." Usually, it's like, you're an idiot, you're a joke, you don't know what you're talking about.
Oh no, because I'm one of the few people who usually get positive stuff on that. But I loved it too. Who was the area critic who died a couple of years ago?
Ken Hankey. Yeah, he was one of my best friends and a mentor.
Oh, was he? I loved him. But what I loved about Ken Hankey is you would write him, and he'd always write you back. He'd respond, and it was really kind of nice. But I just loved his reviews, and he was quite a character. But he had a lot of fans. So I don't know. Well, aside from me, do you have any other fans out there, or people say they look forward to your stuff?
Yeah, my parents.
Sometimes, right? Unless they disagree with you, are they local?
They live in Brevard, yes.
Oh, yeah. So they read your stuff?
Sometimes, yeah. They're very supportive, and they've come to some Movie Guys events and promoted those, but they usually just ask my opinion on something, if they should see X movie or Y movie, and I don't know.
Do a lot of people do that? Ask you your opinion as to what to see?
They do, and I love talking about it. I think some people are like, "Oh, well, you probably don't want to talk about this." I'll be at a party or something like that, or at tennis, and they'll be like, "Oh, well, this is your job. You probably don't want to talk shop." And I'm like, "No, I love talking movies. That doesn't feel like work at all to me." So
is that cool?
I love providing a recommendation, and it's kind of fun to. I think that goes back to my librarian side too a little bit. Is that you be asked for a book recommendation, and you kind of be like, "Well, what are your favorite books? What have you read lately? What are you in the mood for?" And then you kind of push them in that direction.
Do you ever tell people not to see something?
Sure. Yeah. I think, but at the same time, one of my favorite things about being a critic is the rapport that you develop with the readers. And like we're saying, you don't always have to agree. It's more about becoming, kind of like you said, kind of becoming friends with the writer, like Ken Hankey was. And you could tell, especially from Ken's reviews, even if he hated something, he might say something in the review that would kind of like spark something in your mind, like, "Oh, that sounds interesting. I might want to see that," even if he didn't like it. Or you get into a pattern where it's like, "Well, I like this Mission Impossible film and he hated it, and he hates this movie, so maybe I'll like it." And you can exist with the critic even if you're not in total agreement with them.
Well, you're giving me a useful hint in terms of reading your stuff. So I won't agree. If it's Anderson, I'll maybe pass on your review. but almost
Yeah.
everything he's done I haven't really enjoyed, but it's I guess an acquired taste if you like his stuff. What about films on Netflix and Amazon? Do you review those?
Sometimes it's more if they're some of the bigger releases and have a big director or a big star attached, or if it's just an interesting project. But for example, there's a new Richard Linklater film out this week called Apollo 10 and a half, and there's a new Judd Apatow comedy called The Bubble. They're both coming on Netflix this week. And so those are worthy of reviews, but they acquire so much, and some of these things are 10-hour miniseries or docu-series, and you know, there's only so much time in a day. So it's just kind of project dependent. But yeah, I think I consider those real films.
Talk about project dependent, and just talk about what was one of my favorite films, the one he did, Linklater, about the boy. What was the name of that? Over.
Boyhood, yeah.
Yeah, I just thought it was amazing, wasn't it?
So yeah, I got to interview the kid for the Citizen Times.
Really?
It
Wow.
was really fun, yeah, just to sort of get, you know, he's the one who was in the thick of it his entire life growing up, and it was fascinating insights. Yeah, that was a really good opportunity.
But it's just, I thought it was an amazing film, and just, but it was longish, and I guess a lot of people didn't like it. You had to grow with it. But it just, and aside, I don't know if you know anything about the TV. You don't do TV coverage at all, do you?
Not really. No, it's just there's so much to keep up with.
Because there's another TV show very similar. This Is Us. You probably have heard this show. I don't know if you watch it, but I still am trying to figure out how they taped it. It's like it's 6 years, but it's over a life of 30 years or something. I wonder they knew about this in advance, or like about the boy one, he didn't know what was going to happen. It just happened. But the TV show, I just can't fathom how they were able to write it and predict it, and shoot old scenes and then new scenes. It's fascinating, how they did it. But I think they do it very well. The talk in the remaining time, talk also a little bit about your work in theater. And again, I'm very grateful for you in that if it wasn't for you, people wouldn't see reviews for the most part of local theater. Because one of the disappointments, talk about Tony Kiss. I used to love reading Tony Kiss on anything, and almost all the local papers seem to have done away for the most part with theater reviews. Is that true?
It is, yeah. I think we're about the only game in town unless there's a blog or something out there.
But explain what you do, and I think you do it so well. How do they get people coverage, and where do they find it?
So it's at AshevilleStages.com, and that was Bruce Steele's idea, really, because he was at the Citizen Times, and right when they took the theater coverage away, he was saying like, well, we've got such a rich scene here, between from Flat Rock Playhouse to NC Stage, Asheville Community Theater, and even down to Peace Center in Greenville, which brings in the Broadway shows. It's a very rich scene. And same with some of the small towns, Hendersonville, Mars Hill, Waynesville, they're all doing very top-notch work, I think. So, yeah, we've just tried to keep that going and cover a lot of the local productions, and yeah, just doing either solo reviews or really like doing our dialogue reviews, because we usually go see shows together and we kind of talk about it afterwards, or over email afterwards, and just spend that together. And it's just nice to be able to put two perspectives together, even though we often agree. It's just we're coming from different backgrounds, and he's got a lot more experience, and I spent time in New York and LA, and now he's back in LA. So he's and I'm more of a newbie. I'm more of kind of bringing my film eye to theater. I don't consider myself a theater expert, but over the last few years of covering it, I feel like I've gotten to know it a lot better and appreciate it more and really value it more than I did growing up.
And Edwin, if folks want to keep track of you, find out about your reviews, all the stuff you're up to, what's the best bet?
Go over to AshevilleMovies.com or AshevilleStages.com, and there's email addresses there if you want to get in touch that way, or through social media.
And another thing you do too, and again, I will finally get to one, but talk about the other thing you do at movie theaters, where you have what we call it movie guys, or what is that all about?
Yeah, that's another Edwin and Bruce endeavor, and the Fine Arts Theater is our home. And yeah, we just go with whatever they're showing, and then Bruce and I do some homework and learn some behind the scenes tidbits and how the movie was made or other factoids, and then have a little talk back afterwards with the audience, and then open the floor for questions. And we've got a nice little crew of regulars down there, and they seem to like what we do, and very thankful for the Fine Arts Theater for giving us that opportunity. And it's going to keep going forward with our honorary movie guy, Micah Rogers, who's a friend of mine from growing up and lives in Asheville now. He's really knowledgeable, but he was our first choice to take Bruce's place when he moved to LA, and he said yes. So we're just kind of looking to get back in the flow of that whenever we can.
Okay, if next time you speak to Bruce, you can tell me how to fan here, even though I never had direct communication with him, but I always enjoyed his stuff, your stuff. And thanks for all the good stuff you do for the Asheville theater scene and movie scene. So I appreciate having you on board, Edwin.
Thanks so much for having me. This is a delight.
Okay, great. Okay, and as Edwin kind of says goodbye, we'll catch you hopefully in person one time, maybe, Edwin. I'll kind of say goodbye to Edwin, and we'll welcome in our second guest. So let's see, we're going to say goodbye to Edwin if we can. And I'll greet our second guest, if I can find him. There he is. Thanks, Dee. And just give me a second here, Dee, as I may make one brief announcement. I should tell folks they're listening to WPVM, and our mission is to foster community through programming that cultivates dialogue to inform and entertain. The station provides the medium for artists, business community leaders, and nonprofits to share their voice on live radio. Listeners are invited to support WPVM's efforts by making a tax-deductible contribution. They can do so by going to the website, wpvmfm.org, and looking at the donate option on the upper right-hand side. My second guest is Tyrell McGirt, and am I pronouncing the last name right? Close enough?
You did it right.
Okay. And Dee is Director of Asheville Parks and Recreation Department. And Dee, you can wave to all your fans and friends in Facebook world. So if you're watching, that's Dee. And I should mention that Dee Tyrell is a certified Parks and Recreation professional with over 20 years industry experience. So what, you started when you were 7? Is that it?
You don't see my gray hairs.
Well, mine too, but you were the youngest ever to enter the field. He has successfully collaborated with contractors and engineers on park capital projects, worked with planning departments on commercial and residential land development requirements for community recreation, and has led recreation master plan projects. Dee Tyrell specialized in improving efficiencies, growing programs, and developing industry professionals. So welcome aboard, Dee. And the question I always ask, you grew up where as a kid?
I'm originally from Greensboro, North Carolina.
Okay, that's where you as a kid you grew up?
That's where I grew up.
Okay, as a little kid growing up in Greensboro, North Carolina, do you always know you wanted to be a recreation parks kind of guy?
Absolutely not. I kind of stumbled into it, and no, it was the furthest thing from my mind. Actually, I had no clue what I wanted to do once I grew up.
So what got you into this whole field?
Yeah, so I tell people all the time, I kind of got introduced to Parks and Rec when my mom came home one day and was like, hey, what do you think about being a lifeguard this summer? And before I could say, yeah, I do it, or no, she was like, I signed you up for the next lifeguarding class. Go ahead and wrap your head around that. So working for my hometown Parks and Rec department while in high school was my introduction to the Parks and Rec field. And that kind of got me through college. And as a young adult graduate, after I graduated college, I kind of still found myself working in the industry. And before I knew it was like 7 or 8 years, and I had been working in Parks and Rec. And it was like, hey, why don't you get serious about this and really think about making it a career move? And that's kind of what happened.
So as a kid, you were a lifeguard. You did that for a long period of time?
Yeah, I lifeguarded from the end of my junior year of high school all throughout college. So I thought it was the perfect part-time job to have in school. I mean, the hours were great. The money was great because we were considered professionals because we had the lifeguard certification. And it just fit well with I was pretty active in college and high school. So I was able to still be connected and involved in school activities and sports while also holding down a part-time job.
It's also a cool job too, in that I guess it was a great way to meet a lot of people.
Yeah, the connections were awesome.
Just to hang out as lifeguard. Yet I read I was surprised that lately, apparently it's hard to actually hire lifeguards. I thought that'd always be a great job for any kid, but apparently it's not the great job it used to be. Have you seen that?
Unfortunately, yeah, and it's been a trend that's been happening for a number of years now. Even before the pandemic, there was nationwide lifeguard shortages. So I would go to these conferences or participate in these webinars, and part of the conversation was always around how do we get more lifeguards? What are other communities doing? So yeah, it's been going on for a while.
And you think it'd be, I would have thought it would have been a pretty good job. And at one time it paid fairly well, it's whatever. But, it's unfortunate, Dee, because we have the same problem in Asheville, probably not only in terms of staffing in your area, but I know I had the chief of police a couple of weeks ago, and, he said the same thing too. They can't hire police. They can't hire lots of people. But that said, talk a little bit then about the Asheville Parks and Recreation System. How many people work for it, ballpark?
Ballpark 117.
Wow. How many full-time?
That's all full-time. All full-time, 117. Roughly another 100 during the summer seasons when we're hiring seasonal and temporary staff.
Yeah. Now, so when you came on board, is the first thing, and so you've only been on board, right, for a little while in Asheville?
2 months. So I'm still learning everything.
Oh, yes. I can't believe we threw you into this show. So I'm honored. Is this your first appearance on media?
No, I've done other things in the past.
Great, but we're one of the first then. But
the first here in Asheville.
Okay, great. When you came on board, so one of the things they gave you, did they give you a pair of roller skates to get from location to location?
I did get a pair of roller skates, but I probably should have a pair. I can get some exercise in while I travel the distance of the city, right?
I was going to say, so 117 people, that's a lot of people working for
a lot.
The department. So when you think of the Asheville Parks and Recreation Department, describe what it is in terms of where there are parks and facilities that are involved with you.
Yeah, so Asheville's park and rec system is truly a comprehensive system, right? So we have about 55 parks throughout the city of Asheville. Those range from neighborhood parks to community-sized parks to district-sized parks. We have parks that are just open spaces and natural spaces, as well as parks that have a number of active space, so ball fields and playgrounds and et cetera. We have 10 centers. We have 2 swimming pools, a third one, new one coming on the way, a skate park, greenways, trails that are paved and natural, and a ton of programming for kids, adults, and seniors. So we try to be a little bit of everything in terms of recreation and leisure activity offerings, which I think is really special for a municipality like Asheville, because you just don't see the level of comprehensive recreation offerings everywhere you go.
Well, probably a lot of people don't realize, like you said, even myself, how large this is, in terms, like I said, I knew we had 1 pool, so you said 2 pools, and we have a third one coming. Where's that going to be?
That's going to be at the Grant Center, which is located in Southside neighborhood in Asheville.
So that's very exciting, isn't it, to have 3 pools going, and they're all going in the summer at one time?
They all will be going in the summer. So the Grant Center, we're still under the design for that one, but the other 2 will be open, yes.
Okay. And talk about the kind of usage a community pool gets. And who goes to it.
So yeah, community pools the usage could range, right? I think most people are used to seeing young people out there just kind of leisurely having a good time, but a lot of times you have swim teams in the area, summer swim leagues, as well as your more competitive leagues. They're always looking for space, and summer space is one of the few times where they can get in and have enough space for all their swimmers. You also have things like water aerobics. Mornings are a popular time where seniors are coming out to get their fitness and exercise, and water aerobics is a great way in which they can do that. Are
there any indoor pools for the community?
Not in a public system, but I'm not sure if they are the YMCA or not.
I think so. Yeah, that's right. The Y. But, it's funny too, you were talking to you as a kid at a lifeguard. That's changed as well too, because one thing you don't see right in many pools, do they still have diving boards, or they've cut down on diving boards?
You've seen a lot of cut down, and that's just really because of the design of how pools were built back in the day. I mean, you had the slope coming in right where people were coming off the board. So that didn't create for a real safe swimming environment. So a lot of times, if it's a competition pool, you will see a diving well, where it's just a strictly dedicated deep end of the pool. But in most just leisure pools, you're most likely not going to see a diving board.
Now, you mentioned also programs, different programs you have. So let's talk about some of them. So in terms of children or youth in the area, what are some of the programs that the Recreation Department offers?
Yeah, so at our rec centers, again, we have 10 throughout town. A lot of our rec centers offer after school programming to day the kids were out of school. So we have what is called Fun Day. And that's an opportunity where parents who are working, child care is provided where kids can come in and they do a number of different recreation activities, as well as sometimes some enrichment programs are happening within those after school or fun day programming for kids. So within our system, we have them typically at our gym centers.
Yeah, and you mentioned, for example, the activities. So talk about then the specific kinds of activities. So if a kid goes, like I said, for the fun day, what are they doing?
So typically they're going to be in a gym activity, right? So they're going to, our gym setting, they'll come in. There's typically like a free play time. Then there may be some more constructive instructional activity that are happening with a designated adult or a professional in that particular. There's sometimes some arts and crafts that are included throughout the day. Like I said earlier, some enrichment programs. So there may be a component where kids are actively engaged in something that they are learning in school, where they're bringing that, or there may be a homework time that is dedicated strictly to the enrichment portion. And then it's fun. There's an element of allowing kids to explore, play, congregate, get to know their friends, and just relax and have a good time.
And take a day through the different ages. So that's, we mentioned kids in elementary school. It goes on beyond elementary school, though. It goes up through high school and beyond. What are some of the things that for older kids?
Yeah, good question. Most of our programming are geared towards elementary age kids, so kindergarten through 5th grade. We do have some teen programming at some of the centers, which are targeted middle school age kids. And then anything that we have at the high school level may be some targeted special activities.
For example?
One of the things that I'm proud about is we're taking a group of high school kids on a trip to DC this during spring break to kind of visit some historical monuments, the African American Museum in DC, as well as some HBCUs, historically Black colleges and universities. So that will be a program in which high school students are targeted.
How long will that run?
That's a few days during the spring break week.
Okay, very cool. Talk also, you mentioned about some of the seniors. Talk about some of the programs that are available through the Parks and Recreation Department for senior folks.
Yeah, so we do have a couple of centers that are kind of designated to servicing our senior population. That is going to be our senior ops facility located in downtown Asheville, and the Harvest House, which is located in North Asheville. And the activities can range anything from different types of fitness classes, Zumba, or any type of arts and culture type classes. One of the things we have at one of the things that's popular at Harvest House is netting, where people come in and they're doing some crocheting activities that is just awesome. The things that these ladies and participants are coming up with. But arts and crafts, card games, we do have a food service where seniors can come and pick up meals, typically lunch meals at senior ops. But these are some of the things that seniors in the community are able to participate in. And the big thing with this is a lot of these programs are offered and available to all seniors at reduced cost or no cost.
Okay, I was going to say that. So that's what I guess our tax dollars are paying for, that to offer these services to people. And so I guess in terms of philosophy, what would be your philosophy in terms of including who are you trying to reach when you offer a program?
Yeah, the benefit of municipal parks of recreation is we're available to all people. So every citizen that lives in the municipality is our target. And so being able to offer places and spaces where people can come together, utilize, rent at a low cost, or programs that are targeting everyone, regardless of what your background is or your income level may be. Our goal is to get everyone out and involved in some type of leisure activity or recreation activities.
And talk about, in terms of, since you come on board, either anything you've implemented or that you're looking to have get started off the ground, any things that are going to be happening?
Yeah, so the awesome thing about the Asheville Parks and Rec Department is our infrastructure. Historically, like I said earlier, we have 55 parks throughout the system. We have centers throughout our system, and not every municipality can say they have this type of investment. But we do have aging infrastructure. So one of the things we like to get off the ground is really a long-term plan to make improvements to our facilities, as well as our park spaces, and really think what are some innovative measures that we can do, some things that are really happening within the industry that are going to attract people that live in Asheville, people that we're probably not capturing in our park system currently, to want to come out and recreate and introduce them to some new activities.
So do you have anything like that you're in the process of getting off the ground for the first time?
Nothing specific right now. Again, I'm still pretty new, so wrapping my head around everything that we have going on is pretty big, especially with a system like ours. And so I think the smart thing here is to really understand what we have in place before I start making some plans on what to implement. The biggest thing is making sure that we have feedback from everyone in the community, as well as staff. Employees have ideas on kind of things they'd like to see implemented as well.
I was going to ask you that. So if members of the community want to suggest things to the department, do you welcome those kinds of suggestions?
Oh, absolutely.
How does somebody go about making a suggestion?
Well, people can always reach out to us via email, just calling us, visiting our website, or any of our social media feeds. Facebook is a popular one. But I'm also just trying to make myself available to the community, getting out, speaking to different community groups, attending different community meetings, engagements. One of the things I said I wanted to do was get involved and engage in the Asheville community. So when you see me out, and people do, they would typically share with me kind of their vision and things they'd like to see the park system included in our park system, or ideas or things that they maybe have suggested in the past.
You've been in the job for 2 months now, give or take. Do you have a favorite part of the job so far?
Oh, right now I'm actively engaged with getting around to all 117 staff. So I'm enjoying having conversations with staff. I love meeting people and kind of understanding that background, what makes them tick, and hearing from them their ideas on what they like about their jobs and things that they consider are challenges for us for moving forward. So right now, I would say I'm enjoying having these one-on-one conversations with every full-time employee within the department.
And talking about one of those typical days, I guess the fun thing about your job, no day is ever typical. You know, I guess always, right, something's coming up. But what does your typical day look like? If somebody wanted to go into the field and become a parks and recreation kind of person, what do they do on any given day?
I wish I could say it was all fun, but they should be prepared to be in a lot of meeting after meeting. So,
that's not your favorite part of the job, the meetings?
It's not necessarily my favorite part of the job, but it's a necessary part of the job. So a typical day is a lot of times filled with meetings. I guess it's fun if I'm meeting with someone, a community member I haven't met, or I'm out really on site, seeing a park for the first time, or visiting with citizens and hearing things that they like about an area, things that they like to see. That part I really like.
Do people tell you what they don't like?
Oh, yeah.
For example, what might you hear about? What do people complain about?
It depends on the area of town, right? Every neighborhood in Asheville seems to have a unique characteristic. So in one community, it may be parking for special events that are happening at a park or a community center. our parking spaces are lacking at a lot of our centers. So that can be a big hassle for a lot of citizens, understandably. So anything that we're doing at a park or a center that has limited parking has a significant impact on the community. So people let us know about that. And people will share programming ideas that they'd like to see happen, or facilities that they'd like to see improved upon or added to our park inventory.
How about even something such as basic maintenance of the parks? Again, I guess you have to deal with the fact you have limited resources to deal with lots of problems. Is that something you have to face with in terms of your budgetary constraints?
Oh yeah, it's a serious problem. So I mean, there are a number of issues and problems, as you can imagine. So the biggest challenge for us is kind of prioritizing what gets done and what gets pushed to the forefront. And everyone has their thoughts on what that looks like and what that is. So we have to be careful and kind of how we assess that and make sure that it's being communicated with the employees, so they're aware what's coming down the pipe, as well as citizens and residents of the community. So just so that they're aware, everyone may not agree, but at least part of what we want to do is be transparent and make sure people are involved, informed, or know where to find the information.
When we speak in a year from now, what are you going to tell me the most outstanding accomplishment you did in your first year?
Yeah, so some of the things that I would like to see happen is some real long-term planning with our facilities. Like I said, we have an awesome infrastructure within the Asheville Parks and Recreation. We have a number of different types of parks. We have a variety of centers, but our facilities and parks are in need of some loving. So some long-term planning in terms of improvements that need to be made at these facilities. And some of that has already happened, but really a comprehensive plan around facility maintenance improvements with a total dollar amount. And what does that plan look like? It's something I'd like to get through, as well as diving deep into some operational issues, some policies, procedures, ways we communicate to the public, ways we push information out to the public, marketing. These are some dents we'd like to make in our operation standards. But the main thing I think is really gaining the trust of the community. That's a big one for me. And I think that there, for whatever reasons, there's some mistrust with city operations as a whole. And we don't want to aid in that, and we don't want to continue to perpetuate that. We want to gain the trust of the community. So when we're putting forth programs, people know that it's coming from a good place.
I shouldn't assume anything, but I'll ask you then, is there a need for employees within your department? Are you looking to hire people?
Oh, yeah.
Well, talk a little bit about that. So if somebody's seeking a job, what kind of person, first of all, are you seeking to work for Parks and Recreation?
So currently we have some seasonal openings for part-time positions to get us through the summer months, right? So that includes our asset side of the house, our asset division, which includes our park maintenance. So those guys do a number of different things, from keeping our parks maintained, keeping our parks cleaned up. Any utility issue that comes up in the park, or anything that needs to be fixed or resolved, we need crews to work with our supervisors in that area, as well as at our rec centers. We have a number of summer camp programs that we're open to the community, and kids are getting involved with and participating in. And we need people, summer camp counselors, to help with some of our summer camp programs that are based at the community centers.
What's the age requirement on that?
I think for the most of these, certainly 18 and up. I think there may be a few where high school 16 and up age requirement works.
Are you seeking lifeguards?
We actually contract out our aquatic services. So we don't hire within Asheville Parks and Recreation, but the company we contract out with does.
Okay, it certainly makes it, I guess, a little easier for you in terms of...
That makes it a little bit easier in terms of filling positions. Yeah.
So if somebody is listening to the show or watching the show on Facebook, where would they find information, first of all, about the kinds of help you're seeking? Where would they find that?
Yes, certainly on Facebook, you can find us at Asheville Parks and Recreation. People can also go to the city's website, which is asheville.nc.gov, and look for the Parks and Recreation Department, where they can find everything that we have happening within the department. And people can always shoot us an email at parks@asheville.nc.gov. And we have an awesome team that will be happy to answer any questions people may have.
Also, when you talk about the programs you have, so you typically post them on Facebook?
We post them on Facebook, certainly on our website.
The people listening to the show then, best bet if they want to get involved, do you also take volunteers?
Yeah, that's a good question. People who want to volunteer, certainly typically when people are interested in volunteer, they have a particular area that they're interested in. And I would encourage them to reach out to us, shoot us an email and let us know, and we can connect them with the right person over that particular area or division.
Same thing too for high school or especially college students. Do you take interns at all?
Currently, we don't have an internship program, but that's something that's been tossed around and something that's been discussed within the department. We don't have it now. But again, anyone who is a college student looking to get some Parks and Rec experience or think this is a field for them, I would encourage them to apply for one of our seasonal jobs that's always available. And from time to time, we will have some full-time positions that may work for them also, that are entry-level positions that may be a fit for them.
And talk about positions then, and using you as an example. So you were a lifeguard, then you went to college, and you studied, I guess, what did you study? Did you study Parks and Recreation?
I was a business major.
Okay. Well, it comes in handy though, right?
It helps. It helps.
But in terms of a career in Parks and Recreation, because I guess you being a good example, nobody necessarily thinks about it, as a kid. But what kinds of careers are there for folks in Parks and Recreation?
Oh, that's an awesome question. I would certainly, anyone who enjoys outdoors, who enjoys sports, any type of leisure activities, there are a number, we're blessed here in North Carolina to have a number of universities that have Parks and Rec or some type of industry connection field that students can major in. I would encourage anyone who's interested in the Parks and Rec field to kind of research and see what those universities are in the UNC system or even some of our private schools. But some of the main positions or the popular positions are recreation coordinator. And a rec coordinator is like an entry-level position into the Parks and Rec industry. And it can be in a number of different areas, ranging from park maintenance to recreation programming, to outdoor recreation, to aquatics or seniors, or therapeutic recreation. There are a number of different ways that people can get their introduction into the industry. I happen to come through the aquatic side into recreation, but some people have a heart for therapeutic recreation, or the TR field is really popular, or adaptive recreation where you're working with people with needs. Those are some of the needs, but I mean, it's pretty varied and the opportunities are wide. So I'm happy to be a resource to anyone who thinks they may want to consider this as a career choice.
And I'll set you up for one final question, but I guess the recommendation from you would be that if somebody wants to enter the field, they should like working with people. That would help?
You should definitely have a heart for people. Yeah.
And once again, information about your office department, best bet is the website was what?
Website. You can find us at asheville.nc.gov and look for Parks and Recreation Department.
Okay, I'd like to thank you, Dean McGirt, for being my guest the second half hour on the BLAINESWORLD show. Also to Edwin Arnaudin for being my guest the first half hour. My producer, Cappy Tassetti. Look forward to having you join me on Wednesday at 9 a.m. here on WPVM every Wednesday. And you can also see us online at WPVM.org and watch on WPVM's Facebook page. Thanks for being with us, and we'll speak to you soon.